What we've tried to create with this forum is a space on campus where we look critically at ideologies and everyday practices of whiteness as a way of understanding racism in the United States and globally.
Representing white privilege, only white people and people who have assimilated into what people consider white culture can experience these privileges.
We have provided a checklist that people experience every day that could be considered white privilege. For example, one of them is I can walk into a classroom and know I will not be the only member of my race.
Most people that experience white privilege don't know that they're experiencing it. That's why we've done this, hopefully to make people more aware of the fact that it does exist and also create some exposure. Like she said, with the survey, we're going to be printing the results in the RAG, a newspaper run by the Women's Center, so you should look for the results in there soon.
So we did our project on colorism, and colorism is the discrimination of people because of the color of their skin and how it affects them economically or in work or even in their day-to-day lives in society.
We want people to understand how slavery and the racial mixing that went on for hundreds of years has created like a middle class of lighter skinned people above the darker skinned African Americans. Pigmentation back then meant the difference between freedom and being a slave.
People like Beyonce, she's the portrayal of African American women, but not many African American women look like her. She's a more Western white version of what they would want an African American woman to look like. And we talked about Barack Obama and how people are saying that he's not black enough to be the president and how he has to be the perfect one out of the black people to have made it to that status.
So our poster is talking about the white gaze, which is how white people have been taught to see people who are not white in other countries and in our own. And what's important about our poster is that we're trying to teach people about the way that they see people is really a reflection of the power structure that they've been brought up in if they're white. We're focusing on Disney, where the dichotomy between the white princesses and the non-white princesses is very striking because the white princesses are very docile and inactive and the non-white princesses are very active. We're also focusing on Laura Mulvey's male gaze and how it's just something that colonizes the person. You have to look at everything through that particular perspective.
Our project dealt with new racism and how it is increasingly covert, unlike racism of the past. Through our research, we did a documentary. We found that new racism is covert and that it happens in daily conversations through race talk, and that it's not quite like the racism where you have clan meetings.
I thought this show was only for Filipinos, which, you know, really hurt me.
It really sets a tone that making fun of others, anybody other than yourself, is okay, and it's not, because it enacts itself in other ways outside of the home.
Basically, we wanted to do a critical look at America's ideas of equality, such as the Declaration of Independence, the Constitution, through the Civil Rights Movement. We did improve a little bit. We did get the Voting Acts right of 1965, which doesn't discriminate against anybody who would like to vote.
Basically, we really wanted to point out that even though there's a lot of anti-discrimination laws, it's still going on. Other countries are obviously realizing that discrimination is a problem and that affirmative action needs to be taken place.
Our project is on affirmative action.
What we did was looked at affirmative action globally. In Brazil and South Africa, the whites basically hold all the skilled positions, all the management positions, while blacks are being discriminated against.
I looked into the history of affirmative action and some plans that went on in the United States before the actual implementation of affirmative action. But Lyndon B. Johnson was our first president to actually make any laws about it and start implementing programs to help other groups of people who hadn't previously had that opportunity.
So we took a school-wide survey and we just distributed some questions such as, like, what do you think affirmative action is? What are some common misconceptions you have? Affirmative action is reverse discrimination, takes away from whites. All these things are false, and we're just proving and making them known to the public of why these misconceptions are false. And really in actuality what affirmative action is.
So this is basically our assimilation of what affirmative action is. This one is full, and it's for the white student who's applying to college, and their advantage is that they're white, so they're going to be without a blindfold. Well, racial minorities are already looked at as unqualified, so this is their disadvantage, is putting on this bandana and being blindfolded. But what affirmative action does is it comes in and helps. It makes it a little bit easier by making it halfway full. So basically that just it gives them an advantage to even out the playing field that they're already disadvantaged of being a racial minority.
Our project today is about Christianity, the white religion. We sort of traced Christianity through time and showed how it has been affected through Native Americans, African Americans, Chinese immigrants, and other moral issues, how it's been used to justify Christianity being forced on people. We also tied in race by talking about how these minorities have been also enculturated into Christianity. We call it Christianity, the white religion, because it's embracing these white ideologies, such as sort of like this fear that we have. And we're taking anti-racist stance by, we're asking people to have a separation between church and state when they choose to vote on things, kind of put their personal beliefs aside for a little bit. We also have some resources, and we have a great petition to stop inequality, and we have our equality stickers here, and an opinion box for what you think about it all.
Our project, we really focused on right-wing radio, conservative talk radio. 90% of our radio waves are with these types of talk shows. And we called it hate speech because we definitely think that they were spewing hate then not only towards immigrants, but Barack Obama was a big focus of their talk shows this whole year. They are openly homophobic, sexist, anti-immigrant. They talk under the guise of entertainment. There used to be a thing called the Fairness Doctrine. It was slashed in 1987, and the Fairness Doctrine required the radio stations having more viewpoints than just one side. So we want, the people that come in here to take a look at this flyer and visit some of these websites, read some of this stuff, and not to just turn off the radio or turn the station, but to do something about it so that hate speech doesn't stay on the radio.
So we talk about covert racism in high school curriculum. We have one copy of every book approved for grades 7 through 12 to be taught. Right here on the ground, we have one copy of all the books by white authors about white characters. Over here, we have a noticeably much smaller pile, about 10 books, that are by white authors who are kindly enough to include anti-racist sentiment or talk about non-white characters predominantly in a positive way. And here, coming in at just under 20 books, we have the entirety of the approved books by non-white authors, which means that in a world literature class, students have a 1 in 5 chance of getting a non-white author writing about non-white characters. And they're more likely, in fact, to read Catcher in the Rye, written by an American white male in world literature. Members of the community want more voices. They want a more diverse perspective in the classroom.
I think traditionally when we think about racism, we look at the effects of racism on people of color, which is extremely important to do. But the other side of that is to look at how whites benefit by racism and how racism gets perpetuated through institutional formats as well as everyday practices.